people of African descent starting, particularly with enslavement and oppression in the Americas, in the United States in particular, were compelled to philosophize about the most fundamental issues, like, who am I? So I got a whole apparatus up here that is designed fundamentally to engage in metaphysics. That is to say, it has to define me as a being ontologically. I am a slave, not by convention, but by nature. It's an enterprise that is engaging in metaphysics. It has defined my being, and within which there is devotion to convincing me and enforcing upon me an understanding of my being that I'm supposed to accept and live by. I am to understand that I am a slave, limited by nature in certain kinds of ways, and I'm here to serve other people. And there are all kinds of ways, in the most mundane ways, I must live this being and preserve this ontological situation, this social ontology, even including how I am allowed or not allowed to even look at white people, especially white females or white men in authority. Now, how do I keep mind and body together in that situation, particularly if there's any notion that I have that I am different from what I am being forced to accept about myself? How do I survive in this? And my argument is, white folk had very compelling reasons to have to think about the most fundamental issues of being alive, staying alive, not dying, committing suicide, the meaning of life, what's in a name, who am I, what is the nature of my being, what does it mean to laugh as opposed to cry, to get up the next day and go forth rather than committing suicide. The most practical things of living required a lot of thought. How do you eat to survive if someone thinks you are an animal and gives you fundamentally cast off food? How do you create a cuisine out of that? People did. Creating music, dance, how do you laugh? Do you cultivate laughter to keep from going insane or crazy? How do you keep from becoming a group of people who systematically have only one intention, that is utterly devouring and destroying anyone white? How do you explain that over hundreds of years white folk have not been terrorists in this country? And so you got to look at a whole bunch of things that went on, from homes and religious things, spirituality, churches, music, vernacular arts, etc., that people constructed a notion of themselves in the midst of this cauldron of hell by which they thought of themselves and of white people in such ways that they didn't become either utterly suicidal or terrorists and killers of white people. They had to think their way through that. They did, and created long legacies of thinking that they had to communicate to others to keep body and soul together, to keep communities of people together, such that they could survive and believe that it ain't gonna always be like this. And all that those white folk are doing, we're not gonna get in the ditch with them and think like them about them. Now that's, for me, a different sense of being pragmatic or being practical. That is, having to deal with living day in and day out, coming up with some notion of why you ought to live rather than taking your own life or just going postal and going off and trying to kill every person you see who's white.